Yes, the doctor is in this edition of the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show. His season number 2 here on the campus of Virginia Union. I'm Sean Robertson. Great to have you with us on the many platforms of Virginia Union Athletics. And with me, as always, the doc, Dr. Alvin Parker, as we get you ready for the 2024 campaign starts this week on the road in Kentucky. We'll talk a lot about that. But as always, the doc is in. How are you, Coach?
I'm glad to be here. That means the season's about to start.
Yes, finally, right?
Finally.
How was the offseason? I know we've talked a lot about what you guys have done, not only as a coaching staff, but also a unit getting ready for the season. But for you, off the heels of winning the school's first CIAA championship in over 2 decades, how was the offseason?
It was busy, but that's a good thing. We received a ton of awards, got a lot of recognition, for myself, some of the assistant coaches, a lot of the guys. So, it seemed like almost like we were at a banquet every week, but it was a good thing, so we did that. And then we picked up a little bit more, things during the off seasons in terms of the workouts and, things like that we wanted to get better at, So we felt like, everything was done at a championship level last year. We wanted to make sure that we exceeded that this year. So we felt like we did that.
You always talk about your season goals, and you were able to accomplish at least 2. You won the conference championship. Seemed like that was paramount for you guys to accomplish that. And you did that, beating Fayetteville State down in Salem. You made the playoffs again, second year in a row you were able to do that, but you want to get that next goal, and that's to win that playoff game. How much was that talked about? How much has that been a fuel for these guys? And have you seen the intensity level rise based on that?
You definitely seen the intensity level rise. And it's something that we always talk about. We want to make sure we compete nationally. And competing nationally mean not just making it to the playoffs, but winning the playoff game. So we've been fortunate enough to play some good enough football that we've been selected, and earned the right to be in that national bracket. But when we got there, both years we lost. So and it's a lot of guys on the team that were part of both of those teams that participated in those playoffs. So they're definitely hungry. They know some of the things that you have to do and what type of team you have to be once you hit that that bracket. Only 28 teams in the country get a chance for that. In 2 years, back to back, we were selected. We were one of those. But again, we want to make some noise when we get there. We faced a good Wingate team the year before, and we faced a real good Kutztown team last year. But we want to put a mark on there and show everybody how good of a team we are. So, we want to make sure we do that this year. That's definitely one of our goals.
And you mentioned the 28 teams. It was the only CIAA school that made the field of 28. So that's big, and that says a lot about Virginia Union. Turning the page, making this about 2024 and what you guys want to accomplish in 2024. Has it been easy to turn the page after everything you guys did to focus on 2024, or has there been a little bit of a hangover? I won't say you're resting on your laurels, but, like you said, it was a great season, but maybe savoring it maybe a little bit more, or they have completely focused on 24?
I think they turned the page. Once we gave out those big old championship rings, it was kind of time to turn the page to what was next. But I don't want them to forget that the fact that they are champions. So you put that as a patch on your chest, but you look forward to what has to happen in 2024. And the goals might change a little just because, again, we're trying to get somewhere that no other Virginia Union team has gotten.
Do you get a sense that things are a little bit different because now you are the hunted? Everybody is going to play and bring their best game against the champs, as opposed to the year before where you were hunting for a CIAA championship.
It's always easy to be the hunter rather than the hunted, always, but it's a position we want to be in, and we think pressure is a privilege, and we want to, we're not running away from the expectations. Everybody know what they are, and we know we're going to get everybody's best games, and as the champs, I feel like we should, but we have a pretty good ball club, and I think that they're ready for anybody's best, and they're ready to present their best.
What do you like about this group for 24?
It's tough for me to pick one thing. I think
we got time. You can go.
I like the depth of this team. That's one thing that I really really like. That's something big, and that was something that we wanted to create in the off season. And we know if we want to say, what, we're gonna do this thing from August to December. You have to have depth. You can't do it without depth. And I've been a part of some great teams. But we just didn't have as much depth. So that showed later in the season. So that was something that we wanted to make sure that this team had, and we feel like we did that. The coaches did a fantastic job in recruiting, and sometimes it's kind of a twofold thing. When you're recruiting as a champion, sometimes people, you get a chance on a lot of people, and then a lot of people look over your roster and say, it's no need for me to come there if I won't get a chance to play. So it's kind of twofold, but I think our coaches did a heck of a job of assembling the guys that we have on the roster and putting us in position for that. So that's probably the number one thing I like is the depth. And then the second thing I could probably say about this group, they're extremely easy to coach. When it's time for practice or it's time for anything that we do that's football related, these guys show up with the energy that we need, and these guys show up ready. I don't really have to do much of that as a coach, and I've been around some teams that have been good, but needed a lot of motivation to kind of get it going. These guys really don't need a lot of motivation. They show up every day kind of ready to work. So that's one of the big things. The two things I can probably say about this team that I really, really like.
Do you let this team coach themselves as opposed? I know you're going to do your part and the coaches are going to do their part, but are you letting the upperclassmen, because there are a lot of 4, 5, 6-year guys on this roster, are you letting them coach themselves more so?
I think we're definitely a player-led team. I can say that, but I paid 10 guys to do coaching out there, so so I'm gonna let them do the coaching. But but we're definitely a player-led team, and I think I've always been told, even by the great Willard Bailey, you put a player-led team against a coach-led team down against one another, that player-led team is gonna pretty much win every time. So I kind of stuck to that, and I can definitely say we're player-led. These guys, take the charge, and kind of get it right for us, like I said, to make it easy for us to coach everybody.
You mentioned about your depth, and I know one position of depth you really loved, and we talked about it this offseason, was your O-line. A couple of guys received some preseason accolades in the CIAA. I think 2 of your offensive linemen received that. But you like the fact that you could go too deep at every position on that O-line, and they're all flexible. They can play multiple positions on the O-line, which is going to help them and also the running game this season.
Correct. And when we kind of looked down the roster, we said to ourselves, that was one of the areas we just wanted to be super deep in. And that was kind of walking in the door. I said that, we finally got to it this year. We looked and we said, we got, a bunch of guys up front that can play. 4 of those guys returned from that championship team, so that's huge. 2 of those guys are named preseason all conference. And the other 2 returning starters are just as good as those. So we feel good about that, and then we have some young guys that are ready to play. So they might seem young in terms of what's by their name, like the freshman or the red shirt freshman, things you might see, but they came ready to play. So that's something that we like as well. And we added a few guys in there that had some experience as well to make sure that room was extremely, extremely deep. Like we talk about making this playoff run, and you want to be deep, you probably want to start with it up front.
It's going to help out that all CIAA performer, Jada Byers, and that talented backfield as well. We're going to take our first break. We're going to talk more about Virginia Union's team for 2024, as well as their opponent, Kentucky State. The season starts this Saturday against Kentucky State in Kentucky. We'll talk more about that as the Coaches Show continues right after this.
In this space, we explore. We ascend. We conquer. We innovate. We unite. We thrive. Virginia Union University, where every journey matters.
Football is more than a game. It's a legacy built by trailblazers who paved the way for the next generation. I remember the doubters, but I refuse to let anyone define my limits. To the game changers who came before us and to the ones who are yet to step into the field, keep pushing boundaries, keep breaking records, and keep leaving your mark.
All right, we're back here on our second segment on the Doctor is In Coaches Show, the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show. Our first of what we're going to expect to be, 12, 13 coaches shows? Because, the more we have, the deeper.
Let's go 16.
Let's go 16? I like that. That means you're going to go play at least 15 Okay, we'll talk about that. We mentioned about the O line, how deep that is. That D line, I think is. You mentioned a stat last. I think during the preseason the media day. I'm sorry, the media day down at the CIAA in Salem.
Right.
You guys had the number one rush defense, not only in the conference but the entire nation. And it seemed like those guys wore that with a badge. Like, no team is going to run on us, and that's led by Anderson, Isaac Anderson. How good is this D line, top to bottom?
If you ask our O line, they'll kind of tell you they go up against those guys every day. But they're a special group, and again, 3 of those guys returned back from that unit that started last year. And we were able to, add some guys. Those 3 starters, I'm sorry, that returned back from that unit. But we had about maybe, 6 to 7 guys that made major contributions off that unit last year. Then we were able to successfully add some guys to that unit as well. So we feel like we're deep there too. But it wasn't something we set out the season for to start with and say, we don't want to give up any rushing touchdowns or anything. They just went week by week by week by week, and we looked up and we finished 11 games, and those guys had not given up a rushing touchdown all season.
That's crazy.
So that's a stat that I don't know can happen twice, and we're not looking for it to happen twice. But if those guys do it, of course, it'll be some type of history book. I'm sure they'll go down then. But we looked up, and that's how I kind of went. And those guys led the nation in rush defense. It gave about 51 yards a game, which was probably the best I've had in my career, definitely as a head coach and probably as an assistant as well with any staff I worked on. So I was extremely proud of those guys for what they did. Coach Pointer, those things that he did over there, got him assistant coach of the year by the AFCA.
Absolutely.
So he put up some great numbers, and we gave up about maybe 12, 13 points last year. So our defense, we hung our hat on them. Those guys did a heck of a job.
I mean, you played against some really good O-lines, some really good running backs in the conference, outside the conference, and not to allow a rushing touchdown. I mean, it could be some fluky plays along the way, bad weather, as you guys had last year, and not to give up a rushing touchdown. That's amazing for what you guys accomplished.
Yeah, again, like I said, hats off to those guys. We got a real hungry unit over there. Those guys, just play tough. They buy into what that defensive staff has, and when you look at it, you see those guys on paper. You got guys like Shamar Graham, who led us in tackles the last couple of years. You got guys like Will Davis. Of course, all the up front guys that I can name a bunch of those guys. We have a pretty stunning secondary too. So we're happy with what we have over there. So I'm looking forward to seeing those guys play on Saturday.
And they will be playing Saturday on the road, starting off 3 straight road games.
3 straight
to start. Similar to last year, but you guys kind of relished that road. This group last year in neutral site games or true road games were undefeated in the regular season, and it started. Remember at the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. This one, you're going to Frankfurt against Kentucky State. Hadn't seen this group in a long, long time, nearly 40 years. What do you know about this year's Kentucky State team coming off a 3-7 season a year ago?
I think Coach Hudgens does a great job. You see some of the things he did last year in his first year as being the head coach, and you kind of see where they're going, an upper trajectory. And they did a great job in recruiting. We see some of the guys that they were able to get on the roster and some of the things they were able to do on that recruiting side of things. And you have to be like, wow, So we know they're going to come with as a formidable opponent, and we know they have a lot of good players that were already on the roster. So when we were able to kind of do that and break down and kind of scout them, we looked at them and we saw how many good players they had. So we know we're going to have our work cut out for us this week. So I'm going into hostile territory. Nobody on our roster has ever played Kentucky State, so that'll be something different. And the coaches, it'll be another challenge for us as well to get prepared for an opponent we don't know. So we've been taking this time to make sure that we can get everything we can get on those guys and just have our guys prepared to go out there and try to win a football game.
What is it about you guys and playing on the road or on a neutral site? Because it just seems like it. I know it brings you guys together, that long trip, the camaraderie, but it just seems like you guys take it up another level, especially last year when you guys played away from Hovey Stadium.
But the last couple of years, we've done pretty good on the road, so I'm glad you noticed that. So but we, I really can't say what it is, exactly what it is. The schedule's a little tighter. It might be that. Some more of the distractions might be removed when you take it on the road. But I think it's just kind of being locked in. You know, that's a word we use around here, that we want to make sure these guys stay locked in, and it's kind of easier to keep them locked in on the road sometimes, just because, like I said, you remove some of the distractions. But in terms of the preparation that goes into it, it really doesn't change for us. We stay on the same schedule no matter where we're at home or away. So these guys kind of understand that, and it just happens the way it happens. And you look at our road wins the last couple of years. These guys have done a good job.
The fact that this team, struggled offensively, they scored less than 20 points a game a year ago. They gave up almost 40 a game a season ago. I won't say complacency, but not to take this opponent for granted. I know it's a different team than last year, but when you look at the numbers, like, this is the team we should beat. What's the message that you want to instill to this group of Panthers to say, hey, look, last year is last year. Those numbers are different. They're a different group, and not to say this is going to be the same team that showed up last year.
I mean, with it being the first game, we know they're not the same type of team. And a lot of those games, I thought, they played tough, they played hard, even though they lost a few more than, you probably would like. But, like I said, I think Coach does a great job out that way, and they got a big play capable offense. They run an offense where they kind of, throw it around, they spread it out a little bit, what they had. And they had some dynamic players. We know they got a quarterback that like to move around a lot, and he can tuck it and run it. He can throw it as well. And they got some receivers that, we know can get it done. So it's just a matter of just, going out there and being our best selves. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing we want to do, that we're kind of preaching. It doesn't really matter who the opponent is. We got to play Panther football.
Right.
And if we do that, we feel like we're going to be in a good position. But, we definitely got to be ready when we get out to Frankfurt.
Big weekend for the CIAA as a whole. You guys, some other schools playing non-conference games, high-profile non-conference game. How big is week one for the CIAA as a whole, along with yourselves and others, to, again, put that CIAA brand out there about how legit the conference is in Division II football?
Well, I'm impressed, when I look down at all 11 squads and I see what the CIAA has brewing up. We have a bunch of great coaches in this league, from top to bottom, all 11 schools. We have a bunch of great players. In these first weeks, you get the opportunity to kind of go for those guys and, hope for those guys to win, to show the strength of the conference. But, like I said, we do a great job in this conference of playing some good, solid football. And that's kind of evident by, as many teams that we have that do good when it comes to out of conference. Like I said, these first couple of weeks, you get a chance to cheer for those guys and wish those guys the best, till we get to CIAA play, of course. But, that's the biggest thing I want everybody to see. I want everybody to see how good the CIAA football is. A lot of people were able to see that, and a lot of the polls, a lot of the CIAA teams are getting a lot of respect in terms of the way the product we've put on the field the last couple of years. So I'm happy to see that as well. So, good luck to all those guys this weekend.
And good luck to you guys. Safe travels to Frankfurt, and we'll talk to you next week as we recap Kentucky State and preview the big one, or the following week when you make a trip to Hampton to face the Pirates again.
Got you.
All right, the doctor's going to check out this week. But don't forget, the 20th ranked team in the country in Division II in the NCAA Division II preseason poll, Virginia Union, on the road at Kentucky State. Coming up next week, we'll recap that game and preview the Panthers' next contest against Hampton University. For the coach, I'm Sean Robertson. Thanks for joining us on all the platforms on Virginia Union Athletics, and we'll talk to you next week when the doctor checks back in on the Dr. Alvin Parker Coaches Show.